Yes, welcome back. Let's continue. I don't know if the camcorder have enough power. If not, I had to stop. No. 1, 2, 3. If the camcorder, we have to stop and charging my camcorder. I'm not getting up my bed. Just like to read this, the wetland, the swampland, the lake. This big lake, but we can maybe not do that. But let's try to read this one.
Wetland. Upland versus wetland versus lacustrine zones. Freshwater swamp forest in Bangladesh. Peatbogs are freshwater wetlands that develop in areas with standing water and low soil fertility. Mount Polly wetlands in British Columbia, Canada. Wetlands come in different sizes, types, and locations. Clockwise from top left. Upland versus wetland versus lacustrine zones. Freshwater swamp forest in Bangladesh, a freshwater cattail, typha, marsh that develops with standing water and high soil fertility. Peatbogs are freshwater wetlands that develop in areas with standing water and low soil fertility. Wetlands, or simply a wetland, is a distinct ecosystem that is flooded or saturated by water, either permanently, for years or decades, or seasonally, for weeks or months. Flooding results in oxygen-free, anoxic, processes prevailing, especially in the soils. 1. The primary factor that distinguishes wetlands from terrestrial landforms or water bodies is the characteristic vegetation of aquatic plants, adapted to the unique anoxic hydric soils. 2. Wetlands are considered among the most biologically diverse of all ecosystems, serving as home to a wide range of plant and animal species. Methods for assessing wetland functions, wetland ecological health, and general wetland condition have been developed for many regions of the world. These methods have contributed to wetland conservation partly by raising public awareness of functions some wetlands provide. 3. Constructed wetlands are designed and built to treat municipal and industrial wastewater as well as to divert stormwater runoff. Constructed wetlands may also play a role in water-sensitive urban design. Wetlands occur naturally on every continent. 4. The water in wetlands is either freshwater, brackish or saltwater. 2. The main wetland types are classified based on the dominant plants and / or the source of water. For example, marshes are wetlands dominated by emergent vegetation such as reeds, cattails and sedges. Swamps are ones dominated by woody vegetation such as trees and shrubs, although reed swamps in Europe are dominated by reeds, not trees. Examples of wetlands classified by their sources of water include tidal wetlands, oceanic tides, estuaries, mixed tidal and river waters, floodplains, excess water from overflowed rivers or lakes, springs, seep-sound fens, groundwater discharge out onto the surface, and bogs and vernal ponds, rainfall or meltwater. 1. 5. Some wetlands have multiple types of plants and are fed by multiple sources of water, making them difficult to classify. The world's largest wetlands include the Amazon River Basin, the West Siberian Plain, 6, the Pantanal in South America, 7, and the Sundarbans in the Ganges-Brahmaputra Delta. 8. Wetlands contribute a number of functions that benefit people. These are called ecosystem services and include water purification, groundwater replenishment, stabilization of shorelines and storm protection, water storage and flood control, processing of carbon, carbon fixation, decomposition and sequestration, other nutrients and pollutants, and support of plants and animals. 9. Wetlands are reservoirs of biodiversity and provide wetland products. According to the UN Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, wetlands are more affected by environmental degradation than any other ecosystem on Earth. 10. Wetlands can be important sources and sinks of carbon, depending on the specific wetland, and thus will play an important role in climate change and need to be considered in attempts to mitigate climate change. However, some wetlands are a significant source of methane emissions and some are also emitters of nitrous oxide. 11. 12. Definitions and terminology. Marshlands are often noted within wetlands, as seen here in the New Jersey Meadowlands at Lyndhurst, New Jersey. U.S. Technical definitions. A simplified definition of wetland is an area of land that is usually saturated with water. 13. More precisely, wetlands are areas where water covers the soil, or is present either at or near the surface of the soil all year or for varying periods of time during the year including during the growing season. 14. A patch of land that develops pools of water after a rainstorm would not necessarily be considered a wetland event if the land is wet. Wetlands have unique characteristics. They are generally distinguished from other water bodies or landforms based on their water level and on the types of plants that live within them. Specifically, wetlands are characterized as having a water table that stands at or near the land surface for a long enough period each year to support aquatic plants. 15. 16. A more concise definition is a community composed of hydric soil and hydrophytes. 1. Wetlands have also been described as ecotones, providing a transition between dry land and water bodies. 17. Wetlands exist at the interface between truly terrestrial ecosystems and aquatic systems, making them inherently different from each other, yet highly dependent on both. 18. In environmental decision-making, there are subsets of definitions that are agreed upon to make regulatory and policy decisions. Under the Ramsar International Wetland Conservation Treaty, wetlands are defined as follows. Smiley 19, Article 1.1. Wetlands are areas of marsh, fen, peatland or water, whether natural or artificial, permanent or temporary, with water that is static or flowing, fresh, brackish or salt, including areas of marine water the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters. Article 2.1. Wetlands may incorporate riparian and coastal zones adjacent to the wetlands and islands or bodies of marine water deeper than 6 meters at low tide lying within floodlands. An ecological definition of a wetland is an ecosystem that arises when inundation by water produces soils dominated by anaerobic and aerobic processes, which, in turn, forces the biota, particularly rooted plants, to adapt to flooding. 1. Sometimes a precise legal definition of a wetland is required. The definition used for regulation by the United States government is: the term wetlands means those areas that are inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater at a frequency and duration to support, and that under normal circumstances do support, a prevalence of vegetation typically adapted for life in saturated soil conditions. Wetlands generally included swamps, marshes, bogs, and similar areas. 20. For each of these definitions and others, regardless of the purpose, hydrology is emphasized: shallow waters, waterlogged soils. The soil characteristics and the plants and animals controlled by the wetland hydrology are often additional components of the definitions. 21. Types. Sunrise at Virubog, Estonia. Wetlands can be tidal, inundated by tides, or non-tidal. 22. The water in wetlands is either fresh water, brackish, saline, or alkaline. 2. There are 4 main kinds of wetlands: marsh, swamp, bog, and fen, bogs and fens being types of peatlands or mires. Some experts also recognize UA meadows and aquatic ecosystems as additional wetland types. 1. Subtypes include mangrove forests, cars, pocosons, floodplains. 1. Peatlands, vernal pools, sinks, and many others. 23. The following three groups are used within Australia to classify wetland by type: marine and coastal zone uplands, inland wetlands and human-made wetlands. 24. In the U.S., the best-known classifications are the Cowardin classification system, 25, and the hydrogeomorphic, HGM, classification system. The Cowardin system includes 5 main types of wetlands: marine, ocean-associated, estuarine, mixed ocean and river-associated, riverine, within river channels, lacustrine, lake-associated, and palustrine, inland non-tidal habitats. Peatlands. Peatlands are a unique kind of wetland where lush plant growth and slow decay of dead plants, under anoxic conditions, results in organic peat accumulating. Bogs, fens, and mires are different names for peatlands. Wetland names. Variations of names for wetland systems: bayou, flooded grasslands and savannas, marsh, brackish marsh, freshwater marsh, mire, fen, bog, riparian zone, swamp, freshwater swamp, forest, coniferous swamp, peat swamp, forest, mangrove swamp, vernal pool. Some wetlands have localized names unique to a region, such as the prairie potholes of North America's northern plain, pocosons, Carolina bays and bay balls. 26, 27, of the southeastern U.S., malins of Argentina, Mediterranean seasonal ponds of Europe and California, turloughs of Ireland, billabongs of Australia, among many others. Locations. By temperature zone. Wetlands contrast the hot, arid landscape around Middle Spring Fish Springs National Wildlife Refuge. Utah wetlands are found throughout the world in different climates. 14. Temperatures vary greatly depending on the location of peatland. Many of the world's wetlands are in the temperate zones midway between the north or south poles and the equator. In these zones, summers are warm and winters are cold, but temperatures are not extreme. In subtropical zone wetlands, such as along the Gulf of Mexico, average temperatures might be 11 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees Fahrenheit. Wetlands in the tropics are subjected to much higher temperatures for a large portion of the year. Temperatures for wetlands on the Arabian Peninsula can exceed 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, and these habitats would therefore be subject to rapid evaporation. In northeastern Siberia, which has a polar climate, wetland temperatures can be as low as 50 degrees C, 58 degrees F. Peatlands in Arctic and subarctic regions insulate the permafrost, thus delaying or preventing its thawing during summer, as well as inducing its formation. 28. By precipitation amount. The amount of precipitation a wetland receives varies widely according to its area. Wetlands in Wales, Scotland, and Western Ireland typically receive about 1,500 millimeters, 59 in, per year. In some places in Southeast Asia, where heavy rains occur, they can receive up to 10,000 millimeters, 390 in. In some dry regions wetlands exist where as little as 180 millimeters, 7.1 in, precipitation occurs each year. Temporal variations. Smiley 29. Perennial systems. Seasonal systems. Episodic, periodic or intermittent systems. Ephemeral, short-lived systems. Surface flow may occur in some segments, with subsurface flow in other segments. Processes. Wetlands vary widely due to local and regional differences in topography, hydrology, vegetation, and other factors, including human involvement. Other important factors include fertility, natural disturbance, competition, herbivory, burial and salinity. 1. When peat accumulates, bogs and fens arise. Hydrology. The most important factor producing wetlands is hydrology, or flooding. The duration of flooding or prolonged soil saturation by groundwater determines whether the resulting wetland has aquatic, marsh